Outlet Liquor is your place to buy a case. Stock up and save when you shop the lowest prices available every day at Outlet Liquor. You never have to wait for a sale. The more you buy, the more you save. Only at Outlet Liquor.
What's your outlet?
Folks, welcome to episode 3 of Where the Buffalo Roam. I am producer Steve, and I'm here to talk picks, prospects, and all of the young players that are going to make the Buffalo Sabres truly great again. It is Saturday, the 22nd. Just fresh off a big W at home against the Philadelphia Flyers, the Rasmus Ristolainen revenge game where he did get a goal. He got that first one. He beat Hauser 5-hole. Hauser got a good piece of it, but not enough of it. Rasmus would get his second goal of the year against us. But no one really cared about that after a certain amount of time because we had 3 separate players with 2 goals apiece for the first time since 2008 against the Lightning. And that was Jeff Skinner, Tage Thompson, and most notably, as we all saw, Peyton Krebs. Peyton Krebs gets his first NHL goal, deflection off a clapper from Yoki Haru. Not the prettiest way to score your first NHL career goal, but, they don't ask how, they ask how many. And for that first one, it's just nice to get the pressure off. But then that second one he scores right out the box after a penalty called on him. He's rushing to get back into the play, but then Asplund gets possession. He kind of sees the situation play out in a millisecond, sees Krebs essentially all alone at the other end of the ice. He sends it. Krebs doesn't even have to call for it. He just runs it down, beats Carter Hart clean. Picture perfect Sally, like he's just a pure goal scorer, even though he admits, even in his post game, that he's just a playmaker. And Peyton Krebs, 2 goals, his first 2 NHL goals here with Buffalo. Jeff Skinner, I think that was his 16th goal of the season with that one. Tage Thompson with 2 again. That is multiple 2-goal nights for Jeff Skinner this year after basically being invisible last year under the tutelage of Ralph Krueger. So that's just great to see. It was a game like today that kind of makes you just so happy that a lot of our futures are panning out. Like the players that are in Rochester right now, you can see that they're going to have a spot here next year. Like obviously Peyton Krebs, Jack Quinn, JJ Peterka, the big 3. They are obviously going to make themselves at home. I think Mattias Samuelsson has all but solidified his spot as the 3rd left-hand defenseman in this core going forward. He's doing everything you could possibly want out of a guy of his size. He's making the smart passes. He's tying himself up with whatever. Doesn't matter who's in front of the net trying to get a nice easy tip in on something. He's tying them up. He's getting the body on. He's taking the chops. He's blocking the shots. He's doing what you need to do to keep goals from happening. And that's been like one of the biggest things is like some of these D guys in our core. They just get caught puck watching and they're not taking a body. They're not tying up their man. They're left alone, point blank, dead to rights, and we wonder why they score so many easy goals like that. And Mattias Samuelsson is just not letting that happen. So Mattias Samuelsson, I can't see any reason why he isn't going to have a home here next year. I could definitely see Casey Fitzgerald being a nice 7th man in the mix, just based on his few appearances, his 4 games with us. He was making some smart plays too. He had a few questionable turnovers, but I think that was more a symptom of, I hadn't played in the big show before, and I wouldn't put too much stock into it. I don't think he's quite the turnover machine that we hear Oskari Laaksonen can be at times. I think he was just a little jittery. I think some of the games he had to play, he just was not in a position to succeed. If I'm not mistaken, he was on the ice for that 6-1 L to the Tampa Bay Lightning just last week, which was just rough. But that said, there are a lot of people that are in the AHL right now that are not going to be there next year. And I think that it's important to start thinking about that because those are going to be some vacancies that need to be filled at the Rochester level. Because as far as I can see, pending any crazy injuries, pending any game-breaking trades, the core of your team next year could look as follows: the Skinner Tuck Thompson line, top number one. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's going to be great. That second line is most likely going to be some iteration of Cousins, Middlestat, and Quinn. Your third line, definitely keep Krebs at his center with Okposo on the right, JJ Peterka on the left. Your fourth line down there, your depth guys, keep Gergensons playing 4C, Asplund on one side, Brett Murray on the other. The D core is going to be the interesting one, because I do think a big trade needs to be made for a top 4 right-handed defenseman. I think we're just a little bit too weak on that side, especially when next year it's almost a certainty that Owen Power is going to be making a call up to the big show. I don't see him sticking around in Michigan after this year, and I don't see the Sabres organization thinking that he needs that time at the AHL level. I think he's proven himself this year in Michigan that he's ready to play with the big boys, and I think he's going to get a look pretty much immediately. So if we've got Dahlin, Power, and Samuelsson on the left side, Yoki Haru is the only right-handed defenseman that we actually have signed through next year. We might re-sign Mark Pezic. I don't know. It'd be nice. I think as a third-line guy, he's good. But there's just a big open hole somewhere in that top 4. I don't know which person Yoki Haru plays with, either Dahlin or Power, but there's just a big vacancy. I do think a big trade needs to be made. So, Samuelsson, Fitzgerald, Peterka, Krebs, Quinn, those guys are not going to be returning to the AHL. And I think it's worth thinking about who you have in the pool right now before this draft happens that could potentially be filling some of those roles. And some of these people that I'm thinking about are the kinds of people that I'm made aware of periodically with highlight clips from none other than Chris Baker. That guy's got his finger on the pulse of just about every prospect. He's sharing clips from the KHL at like 8 a.m. He just knows what's going on. And one of the guys that I see him talk about more often than most is Olivier Nadeau from Quebec there. He's a 19-year-old right-handed shot, right winger, 6'2", 204 pounds. He was a 4th-round pick in this 2021 draft. You might remember the past 2 seasons he's been with Shawnigan in the Canadian Hockey League, Junior League up there. He had 45 points in the 2020-2021 season in 34 games, 13 goals, 32 assists, and in only 30 games, he has matched that total this year. Once again, 45 points, 17 goals, 28 assists. Theoretically, with more games to be played to exceed that record, I think a kid that's got that kind of power to make plays, to finish, that kind of size, 19 years old. I think 20 years old, if you're starting to show that you've got like real talent, I think that's the time when you need to like stop playing with children and make the move to play with full-grown adults, whether it's the O, whether it's the ECHO, whether it's the A, wherever you got to go. There comes a time in every prospect's life when they're starting to show enough promise that they got to, stop playing with kids and start playing with grown-ups. And I think of all these people I'm going to talk about, I think Olivier Nadeau is the guy who's, I wouldn't be surprised if he got a phone call that, get like a professional tryout with the Rochester Americans next year. I think he would make a pretty good fit pretty much anywhere in that lineup. He could be, he's not quite the lethal sniper finisher that Jack Quinn was on the right wing, but I think he could add a lot to the forward depth up there. You got guys like Michael Mersch still sticking around, obviously. R2 Ruotsalainen still in the mix. Brandon Byro. There's a lot of guys that are probably still going to be there next year. But they got to see what some of these younger prospects got to offer. Another guy that we hear a lot about, he's a little bit younger, but Josh Bloom, the 3rd-round pick from that same draft, 2021. He's an 18-year-old left wing, He's another Canada boy, Ontario, Oakville to be precise. 6'2", 182 pounds. He's been playing 2 years in the O with the Saginaw Spirit. Last year, the year before, 2019-2020, he kind of missed. A lot of kids missed a year due to COVID, which is a real shame for development. He got 14 points in 54 games, so nothing super impressive. He was a younger guy back then. He would have been 16 at that point. So 6 goals, 8 assists over 54 games, -5, only 9 penalty minutes. But then this current season he's in right now, 31 points in 32 games, almost a point per game pace, 15 goals, 16 assists, still a -5, only 10 penalty minutes, and only a few games. Josh Bloom is one of those middle picks. A lot of guys didn't know too much about him, but I think that he could be a pretty good addition. He might be a little bit too young. He might want one more year in the O. It's tough to say, but you're starting to see the guy produce. Starting to see him put up some big numbers. I don't know if that's just the hype of having just been drafted by a team in the National Hockey League that now he's like trying to get those show me numbers up to get a call up to that next level. But I do hope it happens. Another guy worth talking about, Tyson Kozak. Same draft year, 2021. We got a lot of interesting picks that are already starting to be pretty promising. This guy was 7th round, the 193rd pick overall. Another Canadian boy, 5'11", 173, so a little bit on the smaller side, but a 19-year-old left-hand shot, plays center. You could never have too many centers. He's playing in the WHL, Portland Winterhawks. He's been playing with them for the past 3 years now, 4 years now, actually, excuse me. Didn't make much happen in his very first season. He only had 5 games. Didn't get any points out of it. But then the very following season, 2019-2020, 29 points in 63 games, 13 goals, 16 assists, a plus-minus of +27. So the kid is definitely on the ice making things happen when it counts. Last year, it looks like he might have been cut short must have been due to injury because he only played about 18 games. But even in those 18 games, he got 11 points, 3 goals, 8 assists. -2 on the year, so a little bit less than stellar than the year before. But again, it sounds like I'd have to dig a little deeper into it, but he must have been working through some kind of injury that took him out for the majority of the season. And then currently this year, Portland Winterhawks numbers, 36 games, 36 points, exactly a point per game right now, 17 goals, 19 assists, +7. 23 penalty minutes, not too bad. Young guys, they'll take some penalties from time to time. So yeah, a little bit smaller, but then again, we got a lot of guys in our prospect pool that are on the small side, and kids like JJ Peterka and our 2 roots in the line, and Peyton Krebs, Jack Quinn. They're not like the biggest customers, but they're proven to you that they can play the game with the big boys. And I think that Tyson Kozak could potentially be one of those like late round picks. He might just turn out to be a really good depth guy. It's tough to say, but at least at the WHL level, he's finding a lot of success real young. It's good to see. One of the guys that I think is that's more of an obvious choice, but he's a defenseman. We keep forgetting about him just because in this current year, we just drafted Owen Power, so it's kind of hard to think about any other left-handed defenseman when you've already got Dahlian and Power. But 2 years ago, I think one of the final pieces of the accursed Ryan O'Reilly trade was the first-round pick in 2019, where we scooped up Ryan Johnson. He has currently been playing for the University of Minnesota. He has been playing for them for the past 3 years. He looks like he's playing more of a no-bull, defensive style defense. He's not a big point getter. He's not a big playmaker. But across the board, his plus-minus has just always been pretty stellar. With the Sioux Falls Stampede in 2018, plus-minus at +24. 2020, 2021, 4 points in the World Juniors. Very good USA team. +5 in that one. The past season with the University of Minnesota, he's got 14 points in 27 games, 2 goals, 12 assists. Pretty common for the defenseman to get way more assists than goals, obviously. Uh, and then this current season with the University of Minnesota, 12 points in 23 games, so he's pretty close to reaching last year's numbers. 2 goals, 10 assists, a plus minus a plus 7. Last year, of course, was a plus minus a plus 15. So you could definitely see this kid trying to fill the void that Matthias Samuelsson leaves behind. Keep that D-core strong in Rochester. And again, as he's a junior with the University of Minnesota, it's going to start to beg the question, do you want to finish your senior year with the team? Do you want to finish your studies with the University of Minnesota? Or do you want to finally get a call to the big show? Because of these people, he is the oldest on that list, as he's a 2019 draft pick. He is 20 as of right now. He will be 21 by this summer, birthday in July. He's the only American that I've talked about on this list. But, these are questions that the Rochester Americans are going to have to ask themselves, as a lot of the stellar people that are making them contenders for the Calder Cup are more likely than not walking out the door to the big show. And barring any major busts, it's very likely you do not see them again. I don't see a guy like Jack Quinn or Peyton Krebs or JJ Peterka having to make the walk back home. But, thankfully for the Americans, it's more likely than not that at the very least one, if not both, Devin Levi, Eric Portillo, got to start thinking about the next move. I mean, Devin Levi's just had an absurd season. Just so many shutouts. Unplug the other team's controller kind of save percentage. Just, irresponsible. The kind of numbers that Ryan Miller was putting up in his college days. It's just, scary how good this kid is. And, of course, Eric Portillo playing for that wagon in Michigan. It's very likely that one, if not both of those kids are going to make the call up to Rochester. And if they are your goalie tandem, if UPL isn't injured to the point of no return, we can start seeing the development of the future of goaltending for the Rochester Americans and then eventually the Buffalo Sabres. But yeah, it's interesting to look at. Obviously, with a video about picks and prospects, a lot of this speculation can change wildly based on who's picked up this year. Obviously this year we have, as of right now, 3 first-round picks, 2 of which, of course, are conditional. If the Florida first-round pick is somewhere within the top 10, the pick will be exchanged with Florida's 2023 first-round pick. Same with Vegas. If the Vegas first-round pick is anywhere within the top 10, they will trade it for the 2023 first-round pick. But yeah, with that, there's potentially 3 first-round picks on the table this year. I have a hard time believing that either Florida or the Vegas Golden Knights are going to drop down to the bottom 10 of the league at this point. Vegas is the very clear favorite to take the West. Florida's given everybody a run for their money. I honestly really hope that they can upset the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think that would be a wonderful story for a team like the Florida Panthers to finally make it out of a playoff round and just upset everybody by putting the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions down a peg and showing which Florida team wants to take some dominance in this league. And I think that would just be a very fun finish. But that said, we're probably going to looking at 3 first-round picks this coming summer. So any one of those 3 kids could potentially be someone that can slot right into Rochester immediately, or they're going to the college level. It's really tough to say. It's impossible to know for sure, but it's going to be a wild ride. But as of right now, Buffalo isn't looking at the number 1 unless they wildly win the draft lottery with a fraction of a percentage chance. Probably more like 5 or 6 at this point, unless we tank super hard just to try to win Shane Wright. I don't know, but it's going to be an interesting offseason. I hope that there's a big trade for a right-handed defenseman. I hope it goes down. I hope a lot of these people who have expiring contracts, I hope at the trade deadline, teams looking for depth, can offer us even more picks. offer, even if they're later round picks. I think these next 2 years of draft class are just going to be just absolutely irresponsible. Like 2023 in particular is just looking absurd. And of course we do have 3 second-round picks in the 2023 draft. So it's just really fun to think about who's coming through, who's gonna hit, who's gonna bust. But I haven't even begun to talk about what's going on in Russia, because some of those kids are just absolutely irresponsible. But I need to do a little bit more research on how hard it is to break a KHL contract before I get a little too excited about any of those kids coming stateside. I think the only one that's here right now is Steven Sardarian playing with the Youngstown's Phantoms in the USHL. He's doing okay, 18 years old. He was a third-round pick this year. 14 points in 23 games. But again, I think that kid's a little bit young. 6'1", but only 156 pounds. That kid's got to bulk up real quick. But yeah, as of right now, he's the only Russian that we have drafted that's made it stateside. I hope that trend changes. I think the next episode is probably going to be Russian-focused. But that said, I think this is going to just about cut it for the third episode of Where the Buffalo Roam. Thank you very much for watching, as always. Thank you to Trainwreck Sports and Two Goalies, One Mic for giving me the platform to just talk about picks and prospects and young kids that make me excited to wear blue and gold. And everybody say a quick prayer that Jack Quinn recovers well. Projected to be out 4 to 6 weeks with this injury. You hate to see it. Want him back as soon as humanly possible. Middlestad's hitting the road next week with the team. It's likely he'll be back on the ice sooner than later. Kyle Okposo's out for the count. Malcolm Subban's out for the count. Colin Miller's out for the count. Everyone's just getting injured. So say a quick prayer for all your injured Sabres. Make sure they recover soon. Make sure they get all the soup they need. Definitely go to our sponsor, Outlet Liquor, the place to buy a case. So don't haste. I'm going to play some NHL 22. That was fun. I love hockey. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good rest of your night. Have a good tomorrow. And as always, let's go Buffalo.